Have you ever heard of the mystery of Amherst and Esther Cox, the young girl who at 18 was the victim of an attempted mugging by a friend and who has since been the focus of paranormal phenomena in the town? Strange sounds, epileptic seizures, levitating objects, a series of spontaneous fires, sentences that write themselves on the wall, and a whole host of paranormal apparitions that took place even after Esther was stricken with diphtheria and transferred to her sister's home in Sackville. These mysteries have remained unexplained to this day and have fueled the imagination of many authors. If you like unsettling mysteries that still need to be explained, sit back and relax. Here are the most gripping mysteries still unsolved in 2022. The Missing of Asheville. Sep Wayne Quinn. Does that name ring a bell? He was an 18-year-old American boy living in Asheville, North Carolina. He was working at a Walmart store when one day in 2002, at the end of a long workday, he suddenly disappeared from the radar after meeting a friend of his, Robert Owens. The two men had planned to go look at a car Sep wanted to buy. His car was found 2 weeks later near the hospital where his mother worked under very strange circumstances. Its headlights were left on and a dog was still alive in it. And that's not all. There was a drawing of a pair of women's lips with an exclamation point crudely scrawled in lipstick on the rear windshield. 17 years later, Robert Jason Owens was charged with the first-degree murder on Sep Quinn on various charges. It turned out that 2 days after the disappearance, an anonymous person called Walmart, claiming to be Sep and explaining that he had to miss work due to an illness. Investigators were able to prove that it was Robert, and he did acknowledge making the call. Furthermore, he refused to cooperate with the police investigation, which only fanned the flames around him. Today, although he is charged with murder, the investigation is still not able to confirm if it is really Robert Owens who is at the origin of this disappearance and if Sep Wayne is still alive at this time. The Ghost Lights of Bengal. You may not have known it, but West Bengal has its fair share of haunted places. Among them, the Writers' Building, where no one stays after working hours, mainly because of paranormal events that take place there. The South Park Street Cemetery, where after visiting it, people complain of ailments, or the Bengal Swamp and its ghost lights. In this place you can observe ghost lights called Alibi, a kind of flickering ball of light that appears in these swampy regions and would have been the cause of several unexplained deaths. In fact, it would have caused the death of several fishermen of the region after they followed these lights. These lights would have the power to make the fishermen fall in the water and to drown them after having blinded them. What is mysterious and paradoxical is that these same lights sometimes help to guide them and prevent them from putting themselves in danger. Even if we believe that these ghostly Alea lights are a natural phenomenon, since they have been spotted in various places in the world, in cemeteries, swamps, and bogs, they are often associated by some with paranormal phenomena or evil spirits, because when you follow them, they start to flash. They decrease in size and often disappear, which causes panic and leads to loss of way. The House of Horror in Ibadan, Nigeria. Did you think that houses of horror only existed in the movies? Well, not at all. In Ibadan, Nigeria, there is an abandoned building where the police discovered decomposing bodies, skeletons, and skulls. The worst thing is that there were also people still alive, looking like real skeletons wandering around the building. As satanic rituals are very common in Nigeria, the authorities believe that kidnapped victims were tortured and sacrificed, and their bodies were sold all over the country. Moreover, in urban centers such as Lagos, bodies are often found along the streets with several organs removed, such as eyes and genitals. The police discovered this building after street vendors reported several of their group members missing and pointed out the location of a house where bodies were lying on the ground. To this day, no one knows what exactly happened in that building, nor who the dead people are. As for those who are still alive, they are in such a bad mental and physical state that they are unable to say anything. An airtight alibi. Julia Wallace, a case that dates back to 1931, a murder shrouded in unprecedented mystery and arguably one of the greatest mysteries in British history. Now, a little less than a century later, P.D. James, a best-selling mystery writer, claims to have finally solved her murder mystery. On January the 20th, 1931, William Wallace, an agent for the Prudential Insurance Company, discovered the lifeless body of his wife Julia, who appeared to have been beaten to death on his way home to Liverpool. Even though he is the one who alerted the police, he finds himself at the top of the list of suspects. He is convicted of exorcide, but appeals the conviction. Due to lack of evidence, he is released. In addition to the lack of evidence, the grieving husband had an airtight alibi. Since the day before the murder, while at his chess club, he received a mysterious call from a man named Qualruff, asking him to come to 25 Menlo Gardens East the next day. Mr. Wallace obeyed the order but realized that the address did not exist. It is in this time that his wife will be killed, and the alibi of William Wallace would be in fact the fruit of a happy coincidence. For P.D. James, the call received at the chess club was in fact that of a former colleague of Wallace, Richard Parry, himself suspected by the police, since he had no reason to send Wallace to a non-existent address. For the novelist, it would be Richard Parry who would have acted in this way to play a bad trick on her, and the motive would be revenge, because Wallace would have made her lose her job. Without wanting it, he had covered his colleague of the murder of his wife and thus avoided him the capital punishment. Wrong. A gold mine. Ben Sublett and his gold mine, have you heard of it? During the 1800s, people were searching for a supposedly lost Indian-Spanish gold mine. While everyone wanted to get their hands on the mine first, one Ben Sublett, a white man who was also looking for the mine, apparently found it. He had scouted all of the Guadalupe Mountains in West Texas because he knew the mine was nearby, according to rumors that had been circulating for several years. He was so determined to find the mine that he became a popular figure in Odessa, where he had moved, but few people took him seriously, until one day he showed up with a purse full of gold. Since then, he has always been seen with gold in his pockets. People tried to follow him on the sly to find out where his secret mine was, but without success. Every time he disappeared, he always reappeared with more gold in his hands. Sublett would say absolutely nothing about where his gold came from, except that he would occasionally share clues with his close friends. Finally, he died in 1892 in Odessa and was buried with his secret. No one has been able to find the gold mine or prove whether Sublett drew from it. The Spook Light. It is also called Hornet Spook Light. This mystery attracts all the curious of the world, fond of this kind of phenomena. You don't know what it is? It is in fact a ghost light that appears in a small area known locally as the Devil's Drive, located on the border between southwest Missouri and northeast Oklahoma, west of the small town of Hornet. The light is intriguing because it is most often described as being visible from inside the Oklahoma border when looking west. The spook light is described as a single ball of light or a group of lights that would appear regularly, most often after dark. Explanations for the appearance of this light vary widely, from the extraordinary to the mundane. And there is no shortage of theories. Legends speak of the ghost of two young lovers, or the spirit of a drowned girl, or the ghost of a murdered Osage chief. Scientists speak of an atmospheric gas, and the more down-to-earth speak simply of car headlights. And you? What do you think? Rebecca Saha. Rebecca Maui Saha was a Burmese-American woman who was found one day hanging in the Spreckles mansion in Coronado, California. Her tragic death came 2 days after Max Shackney, 6, the son of her boyfriend, Jonah Shackney, fell down the mansion stairs. He was admitted to the hospital, and at the time, only Rebecca and her sister Sheena were present at the time of the fall. The child died of a shock on July the 16th, 3 days after Rebecca's death. Rebecca's death was ruled a suicide, while the child's death was ruled accidental. However, at no time did the judge mention any evidence of criminality, something that annoyed Saha's family, who believe that Rebecca died under mysterious circumstances, openly accusing Jonah, her boyfriend, especially since the results of Saha's autopsy revealed 4 cases of head trauma and fractures in the neck, which were not relevant in the case of a suicide. In addition, Saha was found with her wrists and ankles bound, which rules out this theory. In the end, the jury in the civil trial found Adam Shackney responsible for Saha's death and awarded the family of the deceased $5 million for loss of love and companionship and an additional $167,000 for the loss of financial support Saha would have provided to her mother and siblings had she still been alive. But still, the whole matter remains shrouded in mystery. The Smileys Killer. Keith Hunter Jesperson, nicknamed the Smileys Killer, the strange nickname was given to him because of the smiley faces he left on the notes he sent to the media, prosecutors, and the police after his murders. This Canadian born in 1955 is a serial killer who operated in the United States and claims to have killed 185 people. The Happy Face Killer is serving a life sentence for the 8 murders of women that have been positively attributed to him and that were committed between 1990 and 1995, including his girlfriend. The killer usually preceded by strangulation, the same method he used to kill animals as a child. The first murder of this man went unnoticed, until one day, sadistic as he is, he decided to make himself noticed by leaving a note on a bathroom mirror after a murder, signed by a smiley. Then he went so far as to write letters to the media and the police, all signed again by a smiley face to taunt them. He was arrested in March 1995. It must be said that he had been looking for them a little bit. The Girls from Panama. You probably know about this story. In 2014, Chris Kramers and Lisanne Froon, 2 Dutch women, were on an expedition to explore the Central American country of Panama. On April the 1st, the 2 women visited the scenic forests around the Baru volcano in Phuket and have never been seen since. Although a search party was sent out, no trace of the 2 girls was found until 10 weeks later when a local woman said she found Froon's blue backpack and turned it over to authorities. In the bag were a camera, both girls' phones, and other personal belongings. From the phones, it was known that one of them had dialed 112 and then 119, but neither call went through due to lack of signal. But between April the 5th and the 11th, the battery in Kramer's phone was turned on, and all indications were that it wasn't hers since the PIN code was wrong. 2 months later, a pelvic bone and a foot were discovered in the same area, remains that turned out to be those of Froon and Kramers. The bones of the former had decomposed naturally, while those of Kramers were mysteriously white, as if they had been bleached, raising questions about their strange death. As for the camera, it revealed some very disturbing information. On April the 8th, 90 nighttime photos were taken with flash in the middle of the jungle with timestamps between 1 and 4 a.m. One of the photos shows some of the girls' belongings on a rock, and another shows the back of Kramer's head with what appears to be a blood stain in his hair. That's not all. The Dutch authorities deduced that there was a missing file, image 509, since the 508 was indeed there, and that the 510 was taken at night, which proves that the 509 was purposely deleted. Unfortunately, the causes of the tragic death of the 2 women have never been determined, and no one has been able to dig deeper into this case, which is proving to be the fruitless due to lack of sufficient evidence. The mystery remains. James Cameron poisoned? You all loved the movie Titanic, don't you? What you didn't know is that there was a mysterious story that rocked the set. On the last day of filming Titanic in Nova Scotia, director James Cameron suddenly felt very ill and a bit woozy. As a result, he was overcome with vomiting, and that's when he realized that something was very wrong. Once back on the set, it turned out that several members were in the same state as him. Some were crying, some were laughing oddly and uncontrollably, and all were vomiting. At Dartmouth General Hospital, the story took a turn for the worse when one team member stabbed Cameron in the face with a pen, while others began stealing unoccupied wheelchairs and moving through the hospital corridors like crazy. Cameron, with his face blooded, was folded in laughter. Hospital staff later realized that the hallucinogenic psychotropic drug phencyclidine had been added to the lobster bisque consumed by more than 60 people on the set, and now theories are flying everywhere. One of them claiming that a member of the team had tried to poison the food in revenge for being fired. But officially, the mystery still remains since the closing of the case because of the lack of evidence. Who destroyed the Library of Alexandria? Around 290 BC, the general Ptolemy decided to open a library in the city of Alexandria, Egypt, following the death of Alexander the Great, where all the knowledge of the world would be found in the form of papyrus rolls. No less than 700,000 works in all languages have been identified there. But the joy of the Egyptians did not last long, because the library was destroyed and the papyri that it sheltered disappeared. Today we can't know what information these papyri contained, and besides, we don't even know where exactly this library is, nor how it was destroyed, nor by whom. Well, there are rumors that it was Julius Caesar or an earthquake. If you ever meet Clo-Clo, you ask her. She must have some clues. But what do you say, Einstein? For non-scientists like me, we will never understand anything Einstein said. Besides, you're not the only one. Only a few days after his aneurysm rupture, which cost him an internal hemorrhage, Albert Einstein, stubborn as he is, preferred to let nature take its course rather than to undergo a surgery to go when he wants. Before breathing his last, Einstein spoke his last words to the nurse who was taking care of him. But the problem was that the woman who didn't speak a word of German understood absolutely nothing of what he was saying. The key to many of the scientific mysteries of our centuries may depend on a poor nurse who chose English instead of German as her second language. Who denounced Anne Frank? You all know the story of Anne Frank, but no one can tell me who might have turned in her family, a Jewish family that was hiding from the Germans during World War II. There have been many hypotheses about this, but none of them could give any idea about the identity of the person who did this filth. Some time ago, the name Anne van Dyck was mentioned, a Jewish woman who denounced nearly 145 people after being arrested by the SS in 1943, and who was executed in 1948 for collaborating with the Nazis. It could well have been like her. But alas, there is no evidence to officially conclude this, so it will be a mystery that will last until the end of time. Andrew McCauley. One wonders where Andrew McCauley's kayak took him so that he disappeared so suddenly. This Australian mountaineer was, however, the king of adventure. He was known for his mountaineering and kayaking records in various parts of the world. He disappeared in January 2007 while he was on board his kayak in the Southern Ocean, which due to the storm had become a stormy and tyrannical sea. McCauley had spent 10 years preparing for this trip, not knowing that it would be his journey to the afterlife. Shortly after he was knocked down, the kayaker left cries for help. Today, his family, friends, and the global paddling community are left with unanswered questions. Why did such an experienced kayaker, so close to the finish of a challenging course, get caught off guard and knocked down by the dizzying waves of a rough sea? What could have happened that suddenly weakened him? We will never know. The Hinderer murderer. In the 1990s, Germany witnessed a terrifying murder, undoubtedly one of the most enigmatic cases of the century. On March the 21st, 1922, 6 inhabitants of the Hinterfalker farm in Bavaria were brutally murdered with a pickaxe. Shall we continue? I warn you, it's not very nice to hear. The father, mother, daughter, and granddaughter were all lured one by one into the barn to be shot before their killer went into the house and killed the grandson and the new housekeeper who had arrived the same day. What bad luck! The family didn't see it coming. Yet a few days before, the father had heard noises coming from the attic and noticed that the house keys were missing. as well as the appearance of an unusual newspaper that neither he nor anyone else used to read. This could have been a clue to him. So be it. Several people were suspected of having committed all these murders, like the girl's first husband, who was presumed dead but whose body was never found, or a neighbor and lover of the same girl. The most morbid part of this story is that the murderer had the audacity to stay a few days after the crimes on the premises, since the animals were fed and fire was lit in the fireplace. I understand, considering how cold it must have been there. Joanna Lopez. On January 14, 1989, the NBC television affiliate WMAQ in Chicago broadcast a photo of a missing young woman. It was a certain Joanna Lopez, but the photo is of such poor quality that it was very difficult to distinguish the face and known features of Joanna Lopez's appearance. The image was accompanied by a message, "Missing," and a phone number. There was no further information about the missing person, neither her age nor her height, not even what she was wearing at the same time of disappearance. The network aired the image all night and then removed it for good, never to be mentioned again. Joanna Lopez was forgotten. The strangest thing is that Joanna Lopez's name is now non-existent in all databases, as if she never existed. Not a single news article or newspaper has appeared with details about her disappearance, unless you have any leads. The Devil's Teeth. It was 1972 when a 16-year-old girl was found murdered and her body was left with several strange objects around it, including a halo of stones placed around her head, which immediately made people think of witchcraft. This case has remained unsolved for several years now. Young Jeanette De Palma was found dead in the Hoodale Quarry in Springfield Township after she had been missing for 6 weeks. Some believe it was Satan worshippers operating inside the nearby Watchung Reservation who sacrificed the young woman. The witch cult was singled out at the time because Springfield police had unwittingly found anonymous letters, one of which openly stated that a group of satanic worshippers were planning to kill the child on Halloween. The evidence surrounding this horrific murder was lacking and caused the case to fall apart over time. Finally, after changing versions and speeches several times, Springfield police concluded a drug overdose, although no drug paraphernalia was found near the young woman's body or in her blood. This murder has remained unsolved to this day. This Man, a Real Nightmare. The story begins in 2006 in the office of a psychoanalyst in New York. A patient would have drawn the face of a man that he said appeared very frequently in his dreams, without ever having seen this person in real life or having spoken to him. A few days later, another patient who came to see the same therapist saw the drawing and was challenged by the face that he knew very well, since he also saw it in his dreams. Very intrigued, the psychoanalyst will talk to his colleagues and show them the drawing, and there he discovers that other people in the world also claim to have seen the same face in their dreams. Several years later, an Italian advertising executive named Andrea Nutella claimed that the story was born of a marketing operation, without specifying its purpose. Some sources say it was a promotion for a movie that never saw the light of day, but other people think that the story of this man is much more mysterious than it seems. This mysterious stranger has never been identified, and his presence in the dreams of thousands of people around the world still remains a complete mystery.